Hi guys, Paul here. Welcome back to the Anfield View. Yes, welcome back to Higher or Lower. Yes, a new little segment, a new little special for us. Let's throw in a few curveballs, guys. Obviously it's the summer transfer window, and as much as we'd love Liverpool buying a player every single day, although we have already with Muniz, which obviously wonderful news. We'll come around to that later on. But let's play a game of Higher or Lower. Let's get straight into it, guys. Right. Do you think? Here we go. Let's go straight in with the big guns. None of this build post at the end of the video. No, let's get straight into it. On that, guys. Higher or lower? Will Liverpool finish higher than third or lower than third? Okay, this is well. So we're going straight in with. So for the Premier League next season, do you think Liverpool will finish higher than third? So basically a title challenge, which means we're going to have to oost Man City and Arsenal, or one of them, out the way to get involved in a title challenge, essentially. Do you think we're going to finish higher than third, so basically second or first, not just third, or lower than third, so i.e. fourth or fifth, and potentially be in the same sort of predicament as what we've been in this year? There we go. That's first one off the bat for you guys. I'm going to say I think, and I'm not hedging it, I think we finish third. I don't think we're going to be in the title challenge, but I also think we're going to do enough in this transfer window and the improvements with fitness, mentality. We can't get any less out of Isak and Verts than what we got last year, and they're two superstar players. And so, just with the new manager, the new strategy, the fitness improvements, the tactical improvements, the new players, I can only see us. I personally don't think we can be any worse than last season. It's the worst season I've ever seen Liverpool put together. And so, bear in mind, we conceded the most goals we'd had in the league season ever. Over that period of games, I can't believe we can be any worse than last season. And obviously, the addition of new wingers and a defensive midfielder and maybe a bit more depth can only make us better. Why do I say this? Because let's be honest, Mo Salah didn't contribute that many goals last season. So whilst he's gone, sure we'll miss him absolutely, but we're not gonna suddenly miss the goals because we didn't get the goals last year. We didn't get the goals from Isak last year because he wasn't fit last year. Didn't get the goals really from Verts last year either. And so that downturn in goals, sure we're going to miss the goals from Ekateke, but you would like to think, Jesus, we really are in trouble if we can't get Isak and Verts to cover just a bare minimum amount of goals. I mean, look, Isak's a 25 goal a season striker, and Verts should be pushing at least 10 goals a season as a bare minimum. I'm not saying you should be relying on Szoboszlai every single week, but you would be expecting one of our new wingers to be putting in a shift in terms of at least some goals, and a performance from the other one. And if Gakpo hangs around as well, so I'm going to say I think we finish third. I think it's a big ask to expect us to jump from just how bad we were last season to then catapult us up into a title challenge. Yeah, look, City are ahead of us in terms of their rebuild. Arsenal are in their peak now as well. They don't really have to do much this summer apart from just add more cherries on the cake. All the players are in their prime. They have two for every single position. It really is just adding more on top of the cake for themselves. I.e. they may get another marquee striker, but they're going to have to sell to bring somebody in because they're already at the max in terms of so many players already. Yeah, I would say I'm going to put us down for third. Next one up, Champions League. Do I think we're going to finish higher or lower than the quarterfinals? I'm going to say I don't think we make the quarterfinals this season, mainly because what my question mark is on the depth. And whilst I'm really looking forward to the style of play with Iriola, I'm not sure we'll be able to do every single thing that we want to do in the transfer market to plug all the holes and the depth at the same time. Look, the transfer market will reveal just how many fronts we can really compete on. Because at the moment we are just way short on depth. We're way short on depth and players that are available because we carry Gomez, we carry Bradley, both injury prone. I know Konate's gone, but he albeit the irony of ironies, last two seasons actually been okay in terms of fitness but we carry injury-prone players within the squad. I'm going to say I'm not convinced, but based on my reservations that we're not going to get the depth. And Isak just can't play 3 games a week, and Ekiteke's not going to be back till January, and so I'm going to say we definitely improve in the league 100%. I think that we may come a little bit of a cropper in the Champions League, on that front. So the next one would be, how many signings do I think we're going to make this summer? Higher or lower than 4? Okay. Well, signing Muniz doesn't really change anything for me, if that makes sense, because I was convinced we were going to buy 2 wingers, a defensive midfielder, and then therein lies the rub. How many more do we get over that? Well, a lot depends on how much we're going to spend, which I don't know. Who we're going to sell, I also don't know. And really the net spend that Liverpool want to get to, I also don't know. I mean, like last summer, we ended up selling the house to fund 2 Ferraris. Well, I didn't really buy into the fact that, I wanted the talent, but I didn't want to sell the house to get the Ferraris. I sort of wanted the middle ground. We ended up going too far one way. My general viewpoint is I can't see a world we don't make 4. I see a world we've got Muniz, which is the one of the wingers, which is in the bracket of the Gerard Bowen type style in terms of price tag. Cool. That's 34 million. I see us getting somebody like a Barkman or Diomede around 80, 90 million. That's those 2. We've got to get a defensive midfielder. Wherever we get a defensive midfielder, I've been saying it since Fabinho left. The club knows it, but they also had a bit of a veer across in, that there's, because Gravenberch sort of half plugged that gap, albeit he's not a defensive midfielder in any shape or form. He's just not. He's an all-round midfielder that can do a tiny bit at peak to mitigate that problem, but he doesn't really sniff out danger. He doesn't help the defense for me. Like, at his best, he's a very good player, sure, but he doesn't. He's not your he's not your Fabinho or Mascherano. He'd be a long way away from that level. You can't, I would never put defensive attributes on his list if somebody asked me his skill set. And so I think we'll make 4. I'd like us to make 5. In an ideal world, the 2 wingers, a defensive midfielder, someone that could plug the gap into Ekiteke's back, just to give me a little bit of confidence, and a defensive player that can play both centre back and right back to give me a bit of confidence on that side. I really, 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 really hope there isn't a crazy amount of sales and we end up just driving the net spend down, because if I have to hear one more time, we did 3 transfer windows in one, when the average of that brings us, like the net spend last time, 190 million. That means we're spending about 65 million. Well, less, isn't it? 63 million each transfer window. That would make us near the bottom of the Premier League. Let that one sink in. It's like, 3 transfer windows in one. That's argument. So our net spend is literally near the bottom half, is near the bottom third of the Premier League when it comes to net spend. That's insane. We got one of the highest turnovers, sure, we're one of the highest wage bills. We can't have one of the lowest net spends, though. I mean, Arsenal have been able to put in like net spend of 100 million plus. Like, what gets lost is Arsenal outspent us last summer in terms of net spend. But because of our gross spend, everyone goes insane. So that brings us, so I'm going to say, I think we'll make 4 signings. I'd like 5 to give us a bit more depth, but I think there's not a world we don't sign 3. The 2 wings and a midfielder. Fingers and toes crossed we get 4. I'm really hoping, as I'm coming to the next one, which is sales. I'm really hoping it isn't. I'm really hoping we're not making 1,000. I don't want to end us with 7 signings because everyone keeps leaving. That's my big worry on that front, guys. I'd like to actually increase the depth, not literally just be going 1 for 1, 1 for 1, 1 for 1, and then you end up in September and the squad's the same size as last year. That's not really. It'll put us forward in terms of quality and fitness type of player, but it won't put us forward in terms of depth, and we really struggled on depth. And I think we're going to need more depth with our Iriola's style than slots. And we've needed depth for ages. We've had a massive exodus of players in recent times, and we just haven't replaced the numbers, frankly. So total sales, well, Salah's gone, Robertson's gone, Konate's gone. We know that as free. The jury's out as to whether Curtis Jones is going. Could he be going? It looks more likely than not that he's going. Look, Konate, we all thought he was going. Then there was a sliver of hope that he was staying, but in reality, he was always going. So Konate was no shock to anybody. Robertson, I would have liked to have kept him, but Tsimikas is coming in to replace him. So technically, whilst he has been sold, we're not down in terms of numbers. Muniz has obviously replaced Salah, so so that's obviously happened. And Konate's gone, but technically you got Harvey Elliott coming back in. So as we speak, as of today, we're on the same squad size because you've got Muniz to replace Salah, you've got Tsimikas for Robertson, and you've got Harvey Elliott back. So that's three that have gone out. Okay. I think there's a world where Gomez may go. I think there's a world where Jones may go. I think there's a world where one of Gakpo or McAllister go to either drive the net spend down because let's be honest, there are only two players that we're going to sell that are going to bring money in, and it's those two. We're not going to sell Szoboszlai, and everybody else is on a massive long-term contract. And so it really is only those two players. It's either Gakpo or it's going to be McAllister. I've got no problem McAllister being sold and using McAllister's funds to buy Wharton. I would still like to buy another midfielder on top. I don't really want McAllister to go just to fund Wharton, but equally, I would, it would still put us in a better position than what we are this year. But I don't really want to net spend this window I don't really want a net spend of 80 million this window when we need a minimum 180 million net spend. If we're sitting this window at just like a 90, 100 million net spend, we're going to have to pull some strings to really have any sort of depth to this squad. Ultimately, so I'm going to go higher or lower than 6 sales, and I'm not going to include the youth players on this one because there's a rolling door of youth players sort of going in and out for sort of 1 million here and there. I'm going to say less than 6. I'm going to say less than 6. 3 have already happened. Okay, so I've already accounted for the 3. You got Harvey Elliott. I'll definitely go. That'll be 4. Maybe one of Jones or McAllister will go. I'm pretty convinced of that. And so we may bring 2 midfielders in. That'll put us up to 5. I'm not convinced we're going to sell Gakpo. We may do. Look, if we get 70 million from Bayern Munich, would you sell him in a heartbeat? Really would. But then we would have to reinvest that to replace him. I'm going to say we're going to be under 6 in terms of sales this year, but it wouldn't be unfathomable to see Gakpo and McAllister go. It really wouldn't. I mean, look, those two would raise 130 million. I'm just hoping against hope it isn't 130 million to drive our net spend insanely down. That's my hope. I'm hoping if we do sell them, we reinvest it, and it isn't just so we're sitting there where we've got 3 or 4 signings in, but the squad's just as small as what it was last year. But great, we only spent 90 million. It's like the squad has to be 3 players deep. It has to be 3 players more, and it has to be a deeper squad as well as Yes, we need fitness. Yes, we need the manager. Yes, we need the mindset. Yes, we need the tactics. Yes, we need the wingers. Yes, we need the defensive midfielders. Yes, we need to cover a centre back. Yeah, we need all of those elements, but we need depth. We need depth. How are you expecting to compete on with Champions League and midweek in Premier League? With these games when you've got 0 depth. And I've got more confidence Iriola will actually use training only. And we'll use Rio more, and we'll use the squad a heck of a lot more than Slot ever did. Slot can moan all day long about not having the depth. Plenty of times he never bothered playing Chiesa when he was fit, Endo when he was fit, Gomez when he was fit, Rio a lot more, and training only as well. There was plenty of times he could have managed the squad a lot better. Could have played Curtis Jones many a time when he should have played him ahead of McAllister as well, because McAllister was awful all of the season. So a lot of the management of the squad was a big part, not just the depth. But yeah, so I'm gonna say under on that one, but would not shock me at all if knowing the club the way I know the club, and it is what it is. FSG, don't hide about it on the business model on that front, and it is what it is, on that front, isn't it? So, but I'm not going to be surprised if we've done 7 sales to reduce the net spend down. I'm hoping it's closer to 5. Really, I'm okay with McAllister being sold. I think it would make sense. For me, McAllister being sold makes perfect sense. We get a good salary in, we can upgrade on the midfield, ticks all the boxes, frankly, and we can reinvest it in other positions. And I'm okay with Gakpo going. I'm okay with either of them going. Rather those two go than Jones go, frankly, because definitely Gakpo. I think we can definitely upgrade, and the money would be very valuable. And the same with McAllister. Love McAllister. I did not see that fall off happening. I did not see Fabinho's fall off happening either. It did, and it was, and it was the right thing to move on. And I think it is with McAllister. I think he'll shine in the World Cup, and I think he'll shine in Spain, probably till he's 35. But different country, different speed, different tempo, different everything. Just the Premier League. There's no point moaning about it. The Premier League is what the Premier League is, and you either get a team that to help you win the Premier League, or you try and build a team to try and win it your way. Well, that's wonderful if you have all the riches. Like Pep Guardiola, yeah, you can win it in your style, sure, but then you have to have 54,000 riches to be able to pull that off. And in Jurgen Klopp's case, he had to produce diamond after, like he had to turn, like a winger in Wijnaldum into a midfielder, defensive midfielder as well, a little bit. He had to turn a right back in Fabinho into a defensive midfielder. He had to turn, water into wine from, Salah from somebody that's doing all right in Italy was a flop at Chelsea into a superstar. Mane that was doing well at Southampton into a superstar. Bobby that was struggling at the club, into a star. All these people. Henderson was struggling Klopp as well. And so you sit there and say, well, Robertson, for example, it's ridiculously cheap buy. Matip on a free. All these people. Klopp turned miracles. Players put the graft in, but equally he really polished those gems, didn't he? And so there's many ways to be successful, and I got no problem. It'd be lovely if Iraola could do a fraction of what Klopp did. And I'm not even trying to compare him to that. I'm just saying that ultimately there's many ways to achieve this success. But equally, if you're not going to spend the amount of money required to achieve it in your ideal way, then you have to do it another way. And you have. It's not rocket science in most things in life. You have to understand what's required to achieve what's required. And if you don't understand what's required, then you're doomed from the beginning, because you're just literally going to have tunnel vision and hope you achieve it the way you do it. And 1 out of every 10 times you may do it. Like it's a bit like, how do I put it? If you've got a ridiculous amount of talent and your talent is just naturally better than anybody, and then on any given day you can just basically turn up and win, wonderful. But the vast majority of people, that will never happen for the vast majority of times in their life. So you do have to have awareness about what's required and what you need to actually achieve that success. Total points. Sorry, yes. So we've done the signings. I've gone with 4, like 5. We've gone with sales. I've gone with 5, so lower than the 6. Wouldn't shock me if there's 7 or 8. No, trying to reduce the net spend. I think we'll be less than the quarterfinals. I think we'll hit, bob on 3rd in the league. I think that total points. I'm going to go with higher or lower than 68. Ooh. I'm going to go just higher. I think we may sneak in a 69, 70 point season this season. I mean, look, we got the points that we've got this season, albeit a lot of them came from the first 7 or 8 wins, but I think we may get over the 60. I think we may just sneak. I don't think we're going to get 85, but I think we may just sneak over there around sort of maybe 69, 70, 71, around that sort of points. Total net spend, higher or lower than 150 million. There's part of me that says we only did 190 million net spend last summer. It's tricky. Logic would say our net spend has to be higher because we have less sellable assets. But then is the club going to come from the viewpoint where they feel that there's less to do, even though logically there isn't less to do, but they may feel there's less to do? I'm going to say higher net spend than 150 because I think it'd be very naive to think that we can sell like we did last summer and have a lower than 150 million net spend. We've got depth problems and we've got key position problems and we've got key players leaving by the truckloads. I don't think you can solve that with a low net spend. I just don't think it's possible. There is a point where you just have to do what you have to do and accept it. Next summer, if we do 190 million net spend, let's say 190 million net spend this summer. There's a world next summer where literally all we need to do is replace Allison maybe and get another cover for centre back. That's it. So there's a world we'll look for after this summer. If everything went well, fingers, toes crossed, light candles, everything. If everything went well this year, and I'm not even talking about winning the league, then there's a world next summer that we don't really have to do that much, and not that literally we'll be back to a normal cycle with only a couple of buys a window. So we will get back on that. We're just in a big influx of basically turning the whole squad round. I never saw it happen as dramatic as what it has, but we sort of brought a little bit on ourselves, and a mass exodus of people constantly walking out on their contracts for free doesn't help either on that front. But I think some of that goes back to the sort of Klopp leaving, not leaving days, and then not having a sporting director, then having a new director days, and then you have players running down contracts like Trent and Kanate, to obviously go and pick up, well, I'm going to sign when you're never going to sign sort of scenario, or either they may sign, but no, they're not going to sign. We all know the way of what's really happening on that front. Top goal scorer, I'm going to say, will we score over 20? I think Isak will get over 20 next season. So I'm going to say over. Our top goal scorer next season will be Isak. He will miss some games, but I'm convinced he'll put in around about a 23 goal season. And that's in the Premier League. I don't, people go, total goals. Look, I separate the amount of goals you score in the Champions League and the amount of goals you score in the League Cup and the league. The barometer is the league. And so for me, he's a premium striker and we need him to be scoring about 23, 24 as a minimum in the league for us to be competitive. So I'm going to say yes, over 20, it will be Isak. And it'll be 23, 24, I would say. He's got the talent to get 34, but equally, I don't think we can keep him fit long enough to actually achieve that. Goals conceded in the Premier League. Okay, here we go. Will it be higher or lower than 50? I think it's going to be a roller coaster. We've got two young centre backs. One of them is going to be the starter alongside Virgil. We've still got Kirkus bedding himself in. Virgil's getting older. Allison will be in and out. Problems at the right back element. Hopefully the midfield solve some of that. I'm going to say it'll be a little bit higher than that. I don't think we're going to solve all of the problems this summer. Look, I would love to have Casado. We haven't got him, but I'd love to have Casado in the midfield to help give me that confidence that we could. But I think that it's a big old ask to expect Xhaka and Leone to really step in and be phenomenal straight off the bat. It really is. One, they both come off injuries, and two, it's a heck of a step up on that front. So I'm going to say we probably will concede over 50, I would imagine, in the league. Goals scored in the Premier League, 70. For us, that's a relatively low amount. I'm going to say over. I think this will be a season where we will concede goals again, but we will score a lot more. I think we're going to be a lot more energetic. I think we're going to be a lot more focused. I think we're going to be a lot more determined. I think we're going to be a lot more creative. I think we're going to be on the front foot. I think we're going to dominate a lot more games. Yes, there will be some hairy, scary games, basketball games where we've lost a 4-3. I get it. But I think we will put teams to the sword a lot more than what we did. I don't think we put anybody really to the sword last season. We didn't convince him really any game from start to finish. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say over on the goals and over on the goals scored as well. Total Rio starts. Over or under than 15. I'm going to say, what am I going to say? I'm going to say over 15. I think he will start. I don't think it's going to be like 30, but I think I could see a world where he starts maybe 17, 18 games next season. I'm not saying he's going to finish the entire game, but I can see him at least starting. It may just be a lot of the home games. But which are usually a lot more physical because we have the ball more. I'm going to say, yeah, probably about 17-ish. I'm not saying he's going to go over by miles. I mean, not at the point where we're going to run him like, Michael Owen up to like sort of 30 odd games. But yeah, I would say we don't have an insane amount of depth. So we're not in a position where you can only just play 10 forever in a day on that. So I've done Isaac and hold on. I've got one for actually. Total Isaac starts. I'm gonna say over or less than 20. You can square 23, 24. I'm gonna say he just about go. I reckon he'll start about 21, 22 games next season. But be managed a lot more in terms of his fitness. He'll definitely, I think he'll do 21, 22. I don't think he's somebody that physically can do 34, 35. He just isn't Mo. He isn't Mane. He just doesn't have that physique. He is what he is, but equally he's a clinical surgeon of a finisher. And so if we manage him right, we can get great output from himself. Total Allison starts over or under 20. Makes me really nervous. I'm going to say under. I think it may be like a 17, 18. Yeah, the problem with Allison, and I love him. I'm grateful that he's staying. But there's just that question mark in the back of my head. When he goes out, when he has anything like a tweak of an injury, and look, he may well have been managing it for the World Cup. Right? Look, he would always play full on for us. We know that. But he may have been managing it as the World Cup. But I think that when he's out, we think he's out for 2 weeks, and he ends up being out for 6 weeks, quite a lot. And it's always the hamstring injury, and it's never a 1 week injury. It's always 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And you're like, wow, Allison's been out nearly 2 months. You're like, yeah, he really has. And it's like, yeah, there's quite a lot of games you miss in that period. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm sadly there may well be a world that we only get 18, 19. If we keep Allison fit for 30, then we really will be having a good season because he even now look best one-on-one shot stopper in the world without a doubt. Is his distribution as good as it used to be? No. Is his shot saving as good? Yes. And so yeah, okay, the distribution just isn't what it is, and that's mainly because of the problems with the injuries. Frankly, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this as higher or lower special, really on Liverpool. Really looking ahead, looking at some fun elements to look forward to. Will Isak start as many? Will we get all the goals? What will we do with the spend, higher or lower? How many are going to come in? How many are going to go out? We're going to find out very soon in a lot of these, aren't we, over the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks, guys. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. You know what it's like on that. You'll be notified when I'm doing more videos. As I say, there's a little bit of hybrid at the moment with this, and obviously a little bit of the World Cup as well. One, because we've got Liverpool players in the World Cup, and two, I just love the World Cup. And frankly, because Liverpool had such an awful season last season, I really do need a dose of football that doesn't involve us for a small period, just so I can almost recover from the debacle of last season and then get my mindset ready to go again, for the start of the season, which I think probably the players are at as well, isn't it? Let's be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if half of Liverpool's team play well in the World Cup because it's a change of scenery, and it's just a completely different world, isn't it? On that front. So hope you enjoy that, guys. Great to hear your thoughts. Which ones do you think are higher or lower? What is it? The goals? Do you think Isak can get over 20? Do you think he can get over 20 starts? Will we make enough signings? Will we make too few? What will the net spend be? On that front, guys. As I say, the league position, I'm going to say we'll probably finish around 3. Champions League, I think most people will probably think we'll finish minimum the quarters. I'm just question mark on the depth. The depth from Iriola, and I'm really looking forward to his style, but the depth plus his style. So my confidence on what we can achieve is really a lot of it is underpinned by what this transfer window looks like. And I'm, of course, in this, cake baking mixture, to put it as an analogy, it's Iriola's training, fitness, mentality, getting the best out of the youth, rotating the squad, tactics, getting the best out of the older players, getting best out of the players that are in their prime, and also making the additions to actually give us some depth in the squad and replace the key players that have left. There's a lot of ingredients that have to come together. I think things like fitness shouldn't be that hard to actually put in place. I think things like mindset also shouldn't be that hard to put in place. I think that we will naturally be better. I don't think Wirtz and Isak can be any worse than last season. I don't think the club can be any worse than last season. So I think there will be a natural progression. I think they will enjoy the style of play more. I think the players that we bring in this summer will be a natural upgrade. Look, we know losing Mo is a massive blow, but equally it's not losing peak Mo. It's losing the declining version of Mo. And so whoever we bring in is going to be better than last year's version. And so whoever we bring on the left is going to be better than last year's version of Gakpo as well. And so that when you look at it logically, whoever we bring in the midfield is going to be better than last season's version of McAllister. And and you could make an argument that Jackie can't really do much worse than Kanati last season, frankly, either. So there's many ways you can sort of look at it. But great to hear your thoughts, guys. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the rest of the World Cup. You have a great weekend. Speak to you more soon.